Hello! There are still many places on our planet where no man has ever set foot, and who knows what creatures dwell in the dark depths of the ocean and underground tunnels of cold Scandinavian mountains. Nora Tiedemann and her father Tobias are climbing a steep cliff in Norway's mountain valley of Romsdalen. To see the legendary Troll Peaks, they must put a lot of effort into their climb. Suddenly, Nora falls off, flying a couple of meters down. The safety equipment saves her from demise.
Hey, Tiny, are you coming? You gonna hang there all day?
I'd worry about yourself, you old fossil.
But the lively girl quickly collects herself and catches up with her father at the top. Tobias recalls that when she was a child, his daughter loved the stories about trolls, creatures whose flesh is made of earth and stones, heart of snow, and bones of ice. 13 giants were merrily celebrating a wedding all through the night and lost track of time. Since the creatures emerged from darkness, light was destructive to them, and with the first rays of sun, they turned into this mountain. Nora no longer believes in children's fairy tales, but her father respects the ancient legends.
You have to believe in something to see it. Can you see them, Nora?
He invites the girl to imagine for a moment that all of this did really happen, and then to look at the mountain again. Nora follows her father's advice, and the faces of the stone statues forever imprisoned in the mountain peaks begin to appear before her. 20 years later, Nora is shoveling earth on the ocean shore. As part of an archaeological expedition, her team is looking for dinosaur remains in Norway. They've been doing this for 6 months, but there are still no results. The leader is ready to give up because their funding has been cut off, but the girl intends to stubbornly dig further because she feels that they are close to a breakthrough. She recalls the teachings of her father, who taught her not to lose faith in a difficult time. Suddenly, her shovel hits something solid. A jaw with rows of teeth emerges from the black earth. The team celebrates the find in the form of a huge dinosaur skull and rushes to get their tools. Meanwhile, in a different part of Norway, a railroad is being built. It is planned to run through a mountain. For this purpose, the builders are digging a tunnel using large quantities of explosives. Environmental activists are protesting against such brutal interference in the natural landscape. However, this does not stop the workers from activating another fuse. The ground shakes from a massive explosion. The construction workers go inside to examine the result, but the walls of the tunnel suddenly begin to move. Stones fall on the men's heads. They attempt to escape, but end up buried under the rubble. The unusual seismic activity is immediately detected by the Norwegian armed forces. A reconnaissance plane flies to the mountains, and footage from the scene is shown to the Prime Minister. In addition to a huge crater at the tunnel site, strange large indentions are found nearby. The minister's assistant, Andreas, points out that they look like footprints. The woman laughs in response and suggests not jumping to conclusions. She orders to keep the case a secret from the press and to assemble a committee of experts to investigate the accident. While Nora and her team of archaeologists are celebrating success, a military helicopter appears on the horizon. The soldiers invite the girl to the capital, Oslo, to help with a matter of national security. Under heavy guard, Nora is taken to a secret base where she is met by Andreas. The girl is extremely dissatisfied with the fact that she has not yet been informed about what exactly is going on, and in addition, she is very hungry. Apologizing, the man leads her into a room full of some of the most important people in Norway. Shocked, Nora sits down at the table, where the discussion of the causes of the local emergency is already going on. It's not very clear why the paleontologist was brought here, as dinosaurs died out many millions of years ago. Geologists are trying to explain the strange pits on the ground by a chain reaction after the explosion, which caused rock formations to collapse. Nora interrupts them, thinking it's some kind of bad joke. The Prime Minister asks her for a clarification.
Everyone sees their footprints, right?
It sounds like the paleontologist thinks there's a huge monster walking around Norway, and the gathered experts snicker at her suggestion. The programmer Sigrid enters the room. She has hacked into the phone of one of the activists and found a video of the incident. She displays the footage, and it shows that after the explosion, even people located outside the tunnel are attempting to escape from huge rocks flying directly at them. Nonetheless, the scientists keep pushing the theory of underground gas explosion, and Nora asks to play the video again. She clearly hears something that sounds like an animal growling, and in the still image, she sees an arm and a leg of a giant creature. Meanwhile, in a lonely house in a mountain valley, an elderly couple is peacefully sitting down for tea. Suddenly, their dog starts barking desperately, and the house shakes as if from an earthquake. They manage to get into the basement for cover, Terrified, the dog hides in the doghouse, and the power goes out. When the old couple climb out, they see that almost nothing is left of their house. It's as if a huge excavator went through it. The doghouse was left untouched. The people in the secret meeting are not yet aware of the incident and continue to discuss the disaster. Nora insists that the footage shows a hominid, that is, a creature with 2 arms and legs. She is not taken seriously, since it would have to be some kind of monster from the movies, the height of a skyscraper like King Kong. The paleontologist loses patience and asks whether the government has a plan.
Are we just gonna sit on our asses discussing theories, or are we gonna take action?
Miss, please, restrain yourself.
She says she is willing to pause her project and fly out to the site to examine the footprints. The Prime Minister praises Nora's approach and appoints her as Chief Scientific Advisor. Andreas will accompany her, and together they fly out to the village where the house was recently destroyed. In the helicopter, the assistant gets nauseous because of his fear of heights. To distract himself, he asks Nora how she became a paleontologist. The girl says that she spent her childhood in nature, and her father, who studied mythology, instilled in her a love for ancient tales and legends. It makes sense that when Nora grew up, she began to look for real monsters underground. Her mother died when she was 10, and her father began to lose touch with reality as he got older. They hadn't seen each other in a long time. Andreas confesses that he wants to be a writer and is excited by the chance to see something supernatural. At this point, Nora stops listening. She notices the ruins of the house below, and her jaw drops. Since it's hard to write this accident off as an underground gas explosion, the area is cordoned off by soldiers. Captain Christopher shows more tracks that lead down from the mountains, pass through the river and into the valley. After 3 kilometers, they abruptly end. They've searched the entire area, but haven't found anyone. Nora interviews the only witnesses who couldn't get a good look at the creature because of the darkness. It was as if an entire mountain was moving at them, obscuring the sky. The elderly people have not yet come to their senses, but the woman recalls a thunderous howl that sounded like a heart-wrenching sad song. Afterward, the girl carefully examines the damage and follows the path of the creature that has swept everything in its path. She smells a strange, pungent odor, which she observes as supernatural. Nora climbs into the giant footprint and tries to find signs of living creatures with the help of ultraviolet light. However, the inside is shockingly clean, and there is nothing but earth and rocks. Saying this out loud, Nora suddenly hears herself and echoes of the past overtake her.
What?
Forget about it. It's just some old rhyme.
She asks the soldiers to bring her to where the footprint trail ends. The helicopter takes them up into the sky, trying to figure out where the dangerous giant has disappeared to. The thermal camera only shows mountains, and there is nowhere to hide. Nora makes notes in her notebook, realizing that the creature has only one option left: camouflage. She realizes that without wanting to, she is thinking about old myths and her father again. The girl asks to be brought to the old man. Soon, they land and carefully approach a shack standing lonely at the foot of the hills.
It's better if I do all the talking.
Same here. I won't go back there.
Tobias recognizes his daughter and lowers the shotgun. Nora makes excuses by saying that she was very busy and didn't have time to visit her father. Christopher disrupts the armistice by coming out from around the corner with a pistol at the ready, but the girl calms the armed men down again. Tobias agrees to let the guests in and puts on his pants. The walls of his house are covered with notes and newspaper clippings about various supernatural occurrences in the mountains and conspiracy theories. His daughter cautiously shows the old man the video of the incident and pictures of huge footprints. This does not surprise Tobias in the least. He is only outraged that schools do not teach about the trolls that roamed Norway 1,000 years ago. Nora argues with her father that if that were the case, their remains would have been found by archaeologists long ago. She asks him not to bring up the fairy tales, but Tobias continues to insist that the evidence is being hidden from the public. He himself was put in an asylum when he was about to reveal the whole truth. Due to the spread of Christianity in Norway, the existence of trolls and folklore characters was swept under the rug. In addition, new fairy tales were written to paint trolls as stupid, evil, and greedy monsters, even though they were actually no worse than humans. Nora asks only to help her find where the creature is gone, because no one knows the mountains better than her father. Andreas listens enthusiastically to the mad scientist's theories. Tobias loads up his backpack and is eager to fly out to the site. While researching the creature's route, the old man suggests that it might also be a female troll, a Geiger. Other than him, no one has ever heard the word. He asks to land the plane and starts frantically running around the hills with a map. Nora tells the others that he's always been eccentric, and as he's gotten older, he's gone completely off the rails and lost his job. She feels sorry that he couldn't be cured. Meanwhile, Tobias notices that the information on the maps doesn't correspond to the real landscape. He is glad that he and his daughter are traveling together again, just like in the good old days. The girl still seems to resent her father and doesn't want to reconcile with him yet. Suddenly, a pungent odor hits her nose again. A block of stone that wasn't marked on the maps is staring right at Nora with its huge eye.
Papa?
With a resounding rumble, the troll rises, and the girl quickly pushes her father toward the helicopter. Andreas and Christopher help them inside, and they fly away in shock from the growling, bearded giant, who threateningly swings its mighty tail. The video of the troll is immediately shown to the Prime Minister and her council. Tobias and Nora get connected to the government, and to ensure that they are taken seriously, Nora asks her father not to use the language of children's fairy tales. The old man immediately breaks all his promises and calls things by their proper names. He also angrily criticizes the ministers for building tunnels in the mountains, for which he gets kicked out the door. Nora keeps using terms like unknown entity to avoid looking crazy and asks for more time. But the military can't take any chances, and to ensure the safety of their country, they prepare to attack the troll. Afterwards, Nora argues with her father again, saying that one should not jump to conclusions and rely only on myths. As a result, the people in power no longer want to listen to them, and the adventure is over. The paleontologist is about to fly back to the dinosaurs that will never rise from the ground, but her father stops her. He himself feels like a troll who has woken up in a new world that doesn't accept him and is trying to destroy him. If Nora does not want to share his fate in the future, she should help protect nature and its inhabitants. This makes an impression on the girl, and a fire lights up in her eyes, the same one that always appeared before every expedition with her father. Andreas doesn't mind going on the trip either. They try to convince Christopher to take them with him, but he is reluctant because it goes against orders. Nora promises to follow his instructions, and the captain gives in. Tobias adds that he won't have to worry about sanctions from his superiors because the troll will easily wipe out the military before morning comes. Deep in the night, the army begins the operation, but the troll does not show himself. While they wait, Tobias first listens to Andreas talking about his book about an assassin monk, and then approaches his daughter. Together they recall the legends that Nora loved to listen to as a child, long before her mother died. The loving father managed to fill some of the void that Nora felt after her loss. They cry while remembering the woman, and it helps them reconcile. Suddenly, a familiar growl sounds in the distance, and a loud stomp announces the arrival of the troll. It moves closer to the military positions and stops upon spotting them. The soldiers open fire with rocket launchers, ignoring Tobias's warnings that this will only anger the giant. Besides, no weapon can destroy the creature, and the troll attacks in response. With ease, it destroys everything in its path, and the base loses contact with the group. Everyone tries to take cover from imminent death, and Nora and her team hide behind a tree where a wounded soldier is lying. The guy starts praying, but it doesn't save him from being swallowed alive. Tobias explains that trolls can smell blood and refuses to run away with the others. Instead, he decides to approach the troll and try to calm it down by talking to it. To everyone's surprise, it works. The giant understands the man's words and freezes. Soldiers immediately take advantage of the pause and open fire from the armored vehicle. The creature turns around to defend itself and accidentally grazes Tobias with its foot. Nora does not have time to warn her father, and the old man's body goes flying at great speed from the impact with the stone foot. The troll easily crushes the last war machine as if it were an ant and peacefully walks away. Nora rushes to her father, who speaks the words palace, king, and home before he dies, and asks her not to lose faith. Tobias takes his last breath, and his daughter weeps bitterly over his body. Back at the base, Nora reads her father's note to distract herself from the pain and come up with a solution. She falls asleep at her desk and is awakened in the morning by Andreas and Christopher. They inform her that the troll has been tracked down by a drone, and they are preparing to attack it from the air. Nora has seen the previous attempt and realizes that it's unlikely to work. She proposes to study the fairy tales in detail, but the captain writes off these ideas as grief from the loss of her father. However, Andreas takes the girl's side and continues talking to her. Together, they try to understand why in legends trolls are afraid of the sun, but in real life they saw the giant walking in broad daylight. In addition, Tobias said that Christians were responsible for the destruction of the creatures. Nora had read that trolls threw cobblestones at churches because they hated the ringing of bells. They get in touch with the ministers and try to convince them that they should use bells. They laugh at Nora again, but unexpectedly, Christopher supports her idea, and the military decide to try the new methods. Moreover, they must act quickly, because the troll's existence is still kept a secret so that people can continue to live their lives in peace. It's an ordinary day at a children's amusement park, and the visitors are unaware of the monster's approach. Suddenly, the ground shakes and the stone giant looms over the crowd. People rush to the exit in panic, but one red-haired boy remains standing frozen in a stupor. Helicopters appear on the horizon, carrying the bells. Nora and Andreas are sitting inside and notice that the trick works. The troll howls in pain and tries to cover its ears with its hands. Unable to stand it anymore, it throws an ice cream stand at a helicopter, knocking it down. The aircraft crashes into buildings and sets the forest on fire. It is followed by a second and then a third helicopter, which threatens to fall directly on a child and his father. But the troll notices this and saves them by catching the vehicle flying towards them. Christopher again leads the surviving soldiers away, leaving with nothing. This time, footage of the mythological creature spreads around the world.
ノルウェーのゴジラでしょうか?
They don't even know what kind of creature they're dealing with.
It just really scared me.
Its path leads straight to the capital, and Oslo must be defended at all costs. Nora's plan has failed, but the bells still had an effect. The girl tries to convince the Prime Minister to investigate the troll's motives better, but she is dismissed from the mission, and the military is going to continue to try and destroy the threat. On the way out of the base, Christopher catches up with Nora and compliments her on her professionalism. He too thinks that his superiors are making a fatal mistake and asks her to let him know if she needs anything. Meanwhile, the military leaders discuss the possibility of using an experimental weapon that has not yet been officially approved for use. The Prime Minister is angry that she has not yet been informed about it, while her assistant points out that it is a very bad idea. He is asked to leave the premises. Hurt by this dismissal, Andreas resigns. He catches up with Nora and tells her that Oslo is about to be evacuated, so they have to act fast. The Prime Minister addresses the people of Norway, declaring a state of emergency and urging them not to resist the government's measures. Nora and Andreas get stuck in traffic, and the girl continues to look through her father's notes. Tobias mentions a man named Shinding, and Andreas recalls that it's the Lord Chamberlain at the Royal Palace. Recalling that Tobias was talking about the palace before he died, Nora asks him to turn around and head there. Andreas uses his pass to get through the cordon. His credentials don't work on the palace guards, and they greet the uninvited guests with loaded rifles. Shinding comes to the gates. He doesn't remember Andreas at all, but recognizes the familiar eyes.
I assumed that someone would show up eventually. I can't say I'm surprised that it was a child of Tiedemann's.
He remembers Tobias calling him a stubborn donkey and leads the companions to the basement. 100 years ago, the palace was built over another royal dwelling, which was believed to be great luck. But 12 years ago, the irrepressible Tiedemann revealed the existence of the underground palace again. For this, he had been sent to an asylum, and Shinding apologizes to Nora for taking this measure. The girl does not accept the apology. Soon, the remains of a troll king and his family are revealed to the guests.
What happened? An ambush. It was a massacre.
When Olaf the Holy, King of Humans, baptized Norway, he got rid of everything that was contrary to the new faith. They killed the children too, sparing only one of them, who was taken far away into the mountains. There, they locked him in a deep cave and left him to die. Nora realizes that the Troll King's heir is returning back to his palace. She then shines ultraviolet light on the bones, and they begin to disintegrate. Together with Andreas, they realize that the troll only travels in overcast weather and has never been exposed to direct sunlight. The assistant says they won't be able to control the sun, but Nora immediately comes up with a plan. Shinding takes them to the palace garage, from where the girl makes a call to Christopher. They want to take the giant away from the city center and trap it. Meanwhile, the troll has already reached the capital, where it is causing more and more destruction. The soldiers are trying to slow its advance, to no avail, and the Prime Minister orders the use of the experimental weapon. Sigrid notices a general preparing to enter the secret code to bomb Oslo. She informs Andreas about this, and the man asks the programmer to hack into the system and slow down the process by any means necessary. Christopher activates the city's emergency alert system, and his soldier friends gather at the same location to prepare a trap. Nora and Andreas take one of the troll skulls and load it into the back of their pickup truck. They prepare to drive out to the troll, but an airplane with a missile of mass destruction is already flying towards them. The pilot pulls the lever, but the weapon fails. Sigrid has managed to save the city from destruction. Nora and Andreas sigh with relief, but the girl suddenly begins to doubt herself. Maybe she has turned into her insane father after all.
Completely nuts.
In a world gone mad, then only the crazy can be sane.
Andreas manages to cheer her up, and they set off towards the giant. The troll has already reached the street leading directly to the palace, and Shinding gasps in surprise. Andreas rips the blanket off the huge skull, and in a fury, the troll attempts to chase down the remains of its dead relative. Nora calls Christopher, but he informs her that he needs more time. The captain climbs onto the truck, urging the soldiers to act with a fiery speech. They must show all their courage, because the monster that is coming towards them is truly terrifying. Nora and Andreas continue to drive through the night streets of Oslo, and in the process lose the skull, which falls onto the ground. They turn around, but only manage to see the sad troll picking up the remains of a baby with a crack in its head. The creature howls sorrowfully, and suddenly he sees his reflection in the skyscraper's glass. The giant reaches out to touch the image, which to him looks like another one of his kind. The glass shatters, startling the giant, and the skull slips from his palm. It shatters into 1,000 pieces, and a deafening, mournful roar fills the capital.
He has nobody. The last one of his kind.
The troll notices the car with Nora and Andreas, and his grief gives way to fury. Ready to take revenge on humans for killing his family, the giant rushes forward. He doesn't notice the huge bridge in front of him, effortlessly smashing it to pieces. Nora manages to make it through and hits the gas, driving the troll to the outskirts of the city. Meanwhile, the military detect the source of the tampering with their systems, and Sigrid is caught red-handed. Her computer is taken away, and the attack is resumed. Nora and Andreas make it to Christopher's trap, but they have to jump out of the pickup truck on the move to avoid being crushed. The troll then tries to step on Nora, but gets distracted by the lights and signals of the trucks that are stationed around the giant. The trucks direct dozens of ultraviolet lights at the troll, which cause the creature to stagger backward with smoke coming from its body. At this time, the bomber is already aiming its scope at the troll, but notices the civilians around it. He informs the commander, and the general orders the launch to be cancelled. However, one of the ministers continues to insist on using the weapon and doesn't care about the casualties.
Damn you! Blow it up! I repeat, blow it up! God damn you! We have to blow it up!
Sigrid takes matters into her own hands and knocks the man out, receiving a nod of approval from the general. The pilot takes the plane away, and everyone watches as the troll screams in pain. The soldiers celebrate the victory, but then it dawns on Nora that if they continue the procedure, the creature will not survive. This is in complete contradiction to what her father taught her, and the girl rushes to the switches. Christopher stops his friend who wants to intervene. Nora manages to turn off the lights, and she yells at the giant to go off into the mountains and never come back. The troll listens to her and doesn't attack, but suddenly, the sunrise arrives, and sunlight beams into the giant's face. In a matter of seconds, his body fails and falls apart. The last of his kind, he falls before Nora, and his eyes are forever turned into immovable stone. After a brief moment of silence, Andreas jokes that they should name this new landscape Tideman's Hill. Nora suggests another option, Tobias's Boulder. When the Prime Minister arrives on the scene, she doesn't know what to say and expresses great gratitude to the paleontologist for her work. Andreas reminds her that he has resigned and is going to become a writer. He wonders if there might be other creatures hidden in underground caves that they know nothing about. As if to confirm his words, deep in the mountains, a pile of rocks comes to life and lets out a menacing roar. The music used in the trailer and end credits of this movie is the famous composition In the Hall of the Mountain King by Norwegian composer Edvard Grieg. Also, some sounds of soldier screams were taken from the video game Command & Conquer. As always, look for the title of the movie in the video description. In the meantime, let us know in the comments, what creatures from your childhood fairy tales scared you the most? And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so that more awesome stories are released as often as possible.